As a constitutional law attorney, Jenna Ellis believes in the rule of law and the importance of integrity in our elections. And she's ready to tackle the big cultural and legal issues facing America. This is the Jenna Ellis Show. Here is your host, Jenna Ellis.
Hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of the Jenna Ellis Show. I'm Jenna Ellis, and a constitutional battle is brewing and getting even stronger over the southern border in Texas and the clash between Texas state government and the federal government. So we're going to break this all down, what is going on, and Governor Greg Abbott's latest move, and what does the U.S. Constitution, yes, the thing that we are supposed to actually refer to, the rule of law, what does that say about what is going on? All that and more coming up next. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now. All right, so the Supreme Court on Monday had vacated the temporary injunction preventing Biden's federal Border Patrol agents from coming on to Texas property, including private property. We're not even talking about state property, and cut down these razor wire fences that were guarding and protecting the border from illegals crossing on that particular part of the property. So that has resurrected this entire border controversy into the mainstream media. Finally, Joe Biden and the administration is having to answer more serious questions about the border face-off. That decision by the Supreme Court, again, all it did, it wasn't a final determination on the merits of the case. It wasn't even an opinion. It was just a 5-4 decision that vacated the temporary injunction. So what that means in non-legalese is that the Biden administration had wanted to come down to Texas and take away the razor wire fences, and the state of Texas said no. And so they got a temporary injunction, which was enjoining or preventing Border Patrol from coming into the state of Texas or onto that private property and tearing down the fences. So then the Supreme Court took up just the objection or the appeal from the Biden administration on that injunction, and 5-4 decided to side with the Biden administration. And so who were those justices? Well, Chief Justice Roberts, Amy Coney Barrett, and the 3 libs on the court. So in case you're wondering if this current Supreme Court is going to be the white knight saviors of everything just because we got Roe versus Wade overturned, which great opinion, but not spectacularly great court. This is not going to just be a conservative, solid, originalist majority. And they're proving that almost every day. And so the court is doing what the feds generally do, which is siding with the federal government and saying, we don't care about state sovereignty, and we're going to read into the text of the Constitution and just pretend that because the issue of immigration and naturalization is given to the federal government in Article 1, Section 8, then that means that anything tangentially related to the question of immigration, like the border and stopping illegals from coming across the border, we're just going to twist and manipulate that into an immigration question instead of a state sovereignty and invasion question. So this is where Governor Greg Abbott then responds. And I loved his breakdown in his letter that he issued just yesterday. So this would have been on January 24th on Wednesday. And he didn't just say, screw it, we're ignoring the Supreme Court, they're wrong, I disagree, rah state sovereignty, like a lot of conservatives are doing. I think that is a very dangerous precedent to set. We can't just say, I disagree with the Supreme Court opinion, so like the Democrats, I'm just going to ignore it. That's not what conservatives do. We appeal to the highest law of the land, which is the U.S. Constitution. And if the U.S. Constitution, by the way, were against the highest form of the law, which is God himself and God's law, then we would appeal to that. And that is exactly what our founders did in founding this country when they didn't have a rebellion in the sense of an illegitimate, meaning an immoral rebellion that was against a lawful, rightful authority. They appealed to a higher law and the natural rights that are given to men by God himself, and said that when the government so egregiously infringes upon our rights, it is a right of the people to alter or abolish our government. And so they said, no, England, we are not going to allow you to infringe just because the crown says that somehow he has power to. And so that same rationale and line of argument is what Governor Abbott and genuine conservatives and constitutionalists are understanding and how they are framing this. And I think Abbott is totally correct, where he's not just saying, federal government, I don't care, I disagree with the Supreme Court, screw you guys. He is saying the U.S. Constitution is the highest law of the land, actually does not give the federal government power to come in and tell the state of Texas that we can't protect our own border. In fact, Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3 reserves to the state the right of self-defense. So this is what Governor Abbott said in his letter. The federal government has broken the compact between the United States and the states. The executive branch of the United States has a constitutional duty to enforce federal laws protecting states, including immigration laws on the books right now. President Biden has refused to enforce those laws and has even violated them. The result is that he has smashed records for illegal immigration. Despite having been put on notice in a series of letters, one of which I delivered to him by hand, President Biden has ignored Texas's demand that he perform his constitutional duties. And Abbott goes on to list all of the ways that Biden has failed to perform his constitutional duties. Then he goes on to invoke the founders and says this: James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, and the other visionaries who wrote the U.S. Constitution foresaw that states should not be left to the mercy of a lawless president who does nothing to stop external threats like cartels smuggling millions of illegal immigrants across the border. This is why the framers included both Article 4, Section 4, which promises that the federal government shall protect each state against invasion, and Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which acknowledges, quote, the state's sovereign interest in protecting their borders, which was acknowledged also by the U.S. Supreme Court in Arizona versus United States. That was from Justice Scalia's dissent. And Greg Abbott goes on to say, in closing, the failure of the Biden administration to fulfill the duties imposed by Article 4, Section 4 has triggered Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, which reserves to this state of Texas, the right of self-defense. For these reasons, I have already declared an invasion under Article 1, Section 10 to invoke Texas's constitutional authority, and this is the U.S. Constitution, Texas's constitutional authority to defend and protect itself. That authority is the supreme law of the land and supersedes any federal statutes to the contrary. The Texas National Guard, the Texas Department of Public Safety, and other Texas personnel are acting on that authority, as well as state law to secure the Texas border. So he's right. He is invoking rightly the supremacy of the U.S. Constitution over the federal bureaucracy. The federal bureaucracy often, in order to quash state sovereignty, will invoke the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution, which, when in conflict, says that when in conflict, a state law that touches on a federal question, the federal government can override that. Now, that doesn't just give the federal government, the supremacy clause of the Constitution does not give the federal government the total free license to make laws on anything they want to, or to have supremacy in any area they want to. the founders and certainly the states, when they were creating the Constitution, creating Article 4, which is how the states join the Union, and then what guarantees the federal government, the United States of America, will give to the states, expressly recognizes state sovereignty. This whole idea that states can still direct their own welfare, they can still protect their own borders, they can still ensure that their citizens' rights are guaranteed, especially when the federal government doesn't do it. But we have inverted this whole concept of the true supremacy of the states, by and large, over almost every legal question. And we have ceded more and more and more and more ground to the federal government. And we've even done this, by the way, through constitutional amendments. This is why many of us, myself included, are advocates of a convention of the states, because every single federal constitutional amendment has gone through Congress, which, by the way, are the feds, right? And Congress used to represent state interests through the U.S. Senate. In the original U.S. Constitution, the U.S. senators, apportioned 2 per state, were supposed to literally represent the states in Congress. And so the state legislatures, those legislators would determine who their senators would be, because it was a direct accountability to say, this is what the states want. Can you imagine if the U.S. Senate were still beholden to the states? But now we have severed that tie through the 17th Amendment. And that was done and proposed through Congress. Unfortunately, the states, in my opinion, very stupidly ratified that and basically ceded more federal power, because now that the U.S. senators are popularly elected, now it is just a statewide campaign, and there is really no accountability for senators, especially when you get all of the dark money and the deep state's interest. I mean, this is the only reason, quite frankly, that Mitch McConnell, Lindsey Graham, and a host of other senators that are on the Republican side are still in office. If this were up to the Kentucky and the South Carolina state legislators, then they wouldn't have a seat, and they wouldn't have had a seat from a long time ago. But the only reason that people keep voting for them is because there is so much money that is poured into their campaigns that any primary challenger simply can't prevail. This was not the system the way that the founders intended it. So all of that to say is we're totally, completely screwed up in terms of our system of government. Now, does that mean that, like the Democrats, I'm saying, well, then just ignore everything and scrap the Constitution and who cares? Well, absolutely not. We need to go back to an originalist view. How do we do that? The Convention of States project is the key. The founders gave us the key in Article 5 of the U.S. Constitution. Instead of allowing the federal government through Congress to propose amendments, we as the states and the state legislators need to propose amendments, ratify it themselves, and leave the federal government out of it. And you might be saying, well, what about the state legislatures really aren't any better? And I don't know if I can rely on them any more than I can with the federal government. Well, really, what is the risk here? What's the risk, honestly? If we are already seeing how state sovereignty has been so eroded and the feds basically control everything, and the U.S. Supreme Court is completely off the rails in so many opinions that they have absolutely no business, one, being involved in, but two, opining in the way that they do, like this particular decision to say, oh, yeah, this is a question of immigration, and we're just going to go ahead and allow the feds to do whatever they want to and just forget about Article 1, Section 10, Clause 3, really? Then are we any better off just saying, oh, no, this could be a runaway convention. This could be a total disaster. Well, I hate to break it to you and be the bearer of bad news, but we are in a constitutional crisis anyway. And I would much rather try to use the key that the founders gave us than stand by and say, no, that's actually too dangerous to do what the founders themselves who wrote this Constitution told us was the answer and the key. We'll just see if the feds can somehow get it together and, maybe another Trump administration can do what he failed to do the first time and actually drain the swamp. Yeah, no, guys, that's not going to happen. So are we on the brink of a civil war? Well, potentially. I think that this, if it's going to happen, unlike a national divorce or secession or, some of these ideas that really have no practical application to reality. I don't think, how would a national divorce even work? That's a whole question, I think, for an entirely separate podcast. But if there was going to be a civil war between Republicans and Democrats, or conservatives and these progressive, insane, evil leftists, it's going to start between the feds and the states, because that's really what this comes down to, is that absent, of course, a couple of really strong, solid conservatives on the federal level, which are very few. I think by and large, the federal government, all of its bureaucracy, the deep state, is progressive leftist. It just is. And we've seen the evidence of that throughout the past 50 and 60 years of history, including the U.S. Supreme Court, even including some of these justices that were appointed by Republicans that frankly should have been better. So blue is really the federal government, and red in this sense are the red states that still understand state sovereignty. And it is the red states that are still saying, we can control our border. We still have power under the Constitution, and you are not going to just wipe this away. And several states have affirmed Texas and said that they will actually stand with Texas. And that includes Montana, South Dakota, Virginia, Georgia, Florida, and Oklahoma. All of those have Republican governors. And Florida, in fact, according to Jeremy Redfern, Governor DeSantis's press secretary, Governor DeSantis has already sent some of the Florida National Guard to the Texas border to help Abbott out. And I hope that more red states will continue to do that and stand and hold firm the line. But if there's ever going to be a spark that actually causes another civil war, I mean, we've been in a cold civil war, I think, for a while. I mean, not an actual shooting war, as Don Huffine said on this show a couple of days ago. We've been in a Cold War for a long time, but if we are ever going to get into an actual, genuine civil war, and I think that's going to be a very dangerous thing in this country. I am not suggesting, like a lot of my fellow well-respected conservative colleagues saying, let's just shoot this out kind of thing. I don't think that's the wisest course of action here. But if we are headed that direction, and I think there are a lot of earmarks along the way that suggest that, I think it's going to start with this kind of a clash between literally the agents of the federal government and their arms and border patrol and the Texas Department of Public Safety and the Texas National Guard. That's going to be basically the two armies that have this kind of clash and conflict. Now, there have been those types of conflicts that have escalated, but that have been resolved in other ways. And because this case is still pending in the Fifth Circuit, there's still a lot of different questions about this. I don't know, and I'm certainly not suggesting that we are at the moment of civil war, but I think we're on the brink. And I think that the progressive left is never going to be satisfied until they have total dominance and total control. And the way that we stand up to that is not by throwing out our rule of law. It is doing exactly what Governor Abbott, Governor DeSantis, and other red state governors are doing, which is appealing to the text and the higher law of the U.S. Constitution. Let's not forget, the Supreme Court is under the U.S. Constitution. It only derives its authority and its entire existence from Article 3 of the Constitution. It's not above the Constitution just because it thinks it can interpret any particular text in any way that it wants to. It is not the maker. The creation of the Constitution, the creature of the Constitution, has now said that it is God and can reinvent reality of the Constitution in the way that it wants to. What does that sound like? Well, a lot like the progressive left, right? That thinks that we can self-determine our own reality, just forget and deny the existence of the sovereign, of the actual highest authority, God himself, and in the United States and our system of government, the highest form of law, which is the U.S. Constitution. So are we headed to civil war? I think that is a possibility. And I think that we need to be very sober-minded in this particular age of American history. We need to be very cautious how we frame our arguments, because I truly believe that the federal government is going to stop at nothing to say to conservatives who are advocating pro-Governor Abbott, for example, to say, well, your words are inciting violence, and therefore you can be punished and persecuted and prosecuted potentially based on thought crimes, speaking crimes, and other things. So I would urge a moment of sobriety and a moment of sincere on our knees prayer, because this is rapidly escalating toward a dramatic conflict between the federal government and state sovereignty. And if we were in a bygone era, then I think that we would have a lot more stalwart, courageous conservatives. But really, in this moment, I think this is why we need to have this, to be sober-minded. But we also need to know for ourselves what the rule book says, so that we can make the best arguments, not just ones based in emotion, based in politics, based in us versus them, in kind of this tribal mentality, but understanding why Greg Abbott is actually legally correct in doing this. Because this isn't just about, the elitist lawyers versus, the gunslinging Texans, right, who say we're going to stand our ground, and, the passionate conservatives. This is genuinely about the rule of law. So again, I always would encourage any of my listeners to get the app of the U.S. Constitution, download the free app, read it, understand it, read the Federalist Papers, the commentary that promoted the ratification of the U.S. Constitution, just like how Governor Abbott rightly refers to James Madison, Alexander Hamilton, their other contemporaries, because they were the legislators of the time. They created the supreme law of the land at the Constitutional Convention. We need to know this. We need to know it inside and out. We need to know our rule book, and we need to advocate successfully and effectively. So are we on the brink of a civil war? I really think it's possible, and we need to be very careful how we approach this. But in the meantime, God bless Texas. As you know, my friend Mike Lindell has a passion to help everyone get the best sleep of their life. He didn't stop by simply creating the best pillow. Mike created the Giza Dream bed sheets. They look and feel great, which means an even better night's sleep for me, which is crucial for my busy schedule. Mike found the world's best cotton. It is ultra soft and breathable, but extremely durable. Mike's Giza sheets come with a 60-day money-back guarantee and a 10-year warranty. The Giza Dream Sheets come in a variety of sizes and colors. Mike's latest incredible deal is the sale of the year. For a limited time, you will receive 50% off the Giza Dream Sheets. You will also receive a set for as low as $29.98. So go to mypillow.com, click on the radio podcast square, and use the promo code Jenna. There you will find not only this amazing offer, but also deep discounts on all MyPillow products, including the MyPillow 2.0 mattress topper, which I have and I love, the MyPillow kitchen towel sets, and now even flannel sheets and so much more. We definitely need flannel sheets for as crazy as all of this weather has been lately. So go to mypillow.com and make sure you use the promo code Jenna or call 1-800-564-8475. That's 1-800-564-8475 and use the promo code Jenna. Throughout history, there are clear moments that define our nation's path, and now you can own a piece of that history. I'm thrilled to announce the official Newt Gingrich contract with America coin from our friends at Legacy Precious Metals in partnership with Speaker Gingrich. This limited edition 1 ounce 99.99% silver coin commemorates the historic victory in 1994 when the Republican Party, under Speaker Gingrich's guidance, took control of Congress. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin also symbolizes the transformative political platform that led to the landmark achievements like the overhaul of the U.S. welfare system and the Balanced Budget Act. This is a limited edition coin that will sell out. So whether you're looking for the perfect gift or you want to own a piece of history, act fast before they run out. The Newt Gingrich contract with America coin is more than an investment. It's a tribute to honest government and America. You can order it online at newtgingrichsilvercoin.com. That's newtgingrichsilvercoin.com and use promo code Jenna, that's Jenna, to get $10 off your purchase. Go to newtgingrichsilvercoin.com now.